Hello and welcome, ladies and gents, to the official episode 2 of Cantrip Chronicles, where we do some deep diving into some of the lore that we all know and love, and some of us don't know. Looking your way, Nate, on the wonderful game that we play. Tonight, I am joined by 3 of my lovely companions, my wonderful adventuring party for the evening. We have the lovely CC CEO, Rayna Rai.
Hello!
We have our official hype train conductor, none other than Nate D-O-double-G.
Oh, hey, what's up, friends?
And of course, we have Peter.
I one time bought hot dog.
No. What?
That's
Nailed
it.
Okay.
Nailed it as always. Peter, I got to figure out some letters to throw into your name somehow. I feel like I left you out there a little bit.
That's fine. I'm just Peter. Just Peter.
The pickles, the P-I-C-K-L-E Peter.
No, we don't need to. We don't need to Peter.
Pickle Peter?
I can't even say it now.
Pickle Pete was his mobster name. He's in witness protection. We can't.
Yeah, we can't talk about that no more.
Can't talk
Thank
about
you.
my pickle days.
Not the pickles.
Today, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be diving into a very, very interesting topic surrounding one of the many gods within D&D, more specifically, the god of magic, Mystra herself. Now, I have to say that I plan to go into the death of Mystra in all of this because I thought, hey, this is a cool little murder mystery that we can start talking about. And boy, howdy, did I not know how deep this rabbit hole goes. So we've got a lot to talk about. It's going to be more of kind of like a story episode tonight where we're going to be diving back into a lot of D&D history that has brought us basically up to the point of today. So strap in, settled in, and we'll get going. Before I get started, does anyone on my panel know who Mystra is, other than the goddess of magic? You don't have to raise your hand. Peter, this is going on Spotify. No one can see that you're raising your hand.
I have raised my hand. I gotta clarify. I just gotta say it. Like right now, I could say, "Hey, Spotify, I'm juggling a bunch of hot dogs." Why am I defaulting to hot dogs?
Oh, hey,
You've got a lot of
now.
Frankfurts on the mind right now, my friend.
Spotify has video podcasts now. You can watch in video or audio format.
Are we on video?
we
there?
I
doing
haven't uploaded the previous
So
episode
Spotify,
yet.
if you're listening, I'm juggling hot dogs.
Look, I'll upload it in a hot minute, okay?
I think this might ruin Peter. They won't know if he's actually juggling hot dogs or not. He needs this for his confidence.
Yeah, I know. Now that he's been called out on all of this, I don't think this is the episode that we need to upload.
Yeah.
I have a product placement with Oscar Mayer, and I really need to get these talking hot dogs.
Well,
I
I
got
got
a lot of
200
hot
hot
dogs
dogs. I got to
talk.
move. Yeah.
Yeah. Got to get that Plizzy money. You know what I'm talking about?
Guys, the basement's starting to stink.
What?
With
What are we
that
doing?
said, let's move away from hot dogs for a minute because that's actually next week's show. We're going to be talking about hot dogs and D&D. So,
Nice.
Peter, you can
A
you can
god
go
of
from
hot
there.
dogs.
I'll do it. Don't worry.
So, in order
wait,
to
hold on. I have one. Can a hamburger marry a hot dog?
That is next week's topic.
we
Only
just
if-
said
Only if they have a very frank relationship.
I don't like
All right,
this.
and that's our show for the evening because clearly we don't want to
Very
be on
good.
air anymore. We've completely given up on this show.
Dave,
Second one
I've
in,
never
and it's
really
already
heard
done.
of Mystra, only in that of Baldur's Gate 3. But fun fact about Baldur's Gate 3, I didn't get Act 3 is just it's a DLC that I'm waiting for. My PC can't handle Act 3. I don't know how it ends. So I've only ordered Mystra up until the end of Act 2.
Funny you mentioned that, Nate, because there is going to be a DLC that comes out for Baldur's Gate 3 that we will be playing on stream. So if you want to come check it out, we play games on Friday nights over here at twitch.com or twitch.tv/carefulcantrip. I can't even get it right when I mean to get it right. This is where it all falls down for me, folks. And of course, we'll be posting that up on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/carefulcantrip, if you are interested in consuming all of the CC content you could possibly wish for. So without any further ado, Nate, you will be very happy about this because there's a lot of Baldur's Gate 3 that we're going to be talking about tonight. This is,
Okay.
like I said, this is a very, very deep rabbit hole, okay?
I'm ready
before
to jump.
before we get into the Death of Mystra, the big murder mystery around Mithra, we got to take it back a little bit at this point. We got to start off at the very beginning of things, of where this all kind of transpired. And of course, where do all disastrous things start? And if you
In the
guessed...
heart.
No, well, technically shitty father figures, but that's pretty close, pretty close. So it does, and that's where it all starts off. So the whole thing starts off with the typical shitty father figure god. His name is Ao. So
Ayo!
Hey-o.
all right, and this is the
Hey, give
second
us
time
Ao.
that we've quit. Thank you so much for joining us. Check us out on Spotify, Patreon, etc. No, so if, for those of you who don't know, Ao in the world of D&D is essentially like the big daddy of all gods in the D&D pantheon. He's literally called the over deity. He oversees everything in every universe, and most of the kid gods who are the big bads in our world and the big goods in our worlds, they answer directly to Ao. So it's just a little priming for you, if you will. Now, where this all really begins is back in much simpler times of first edition, when things were good. The main world within the Forgotten Realms was known as Toril, and it was filled, luckily enough, with both dungeons and dragons. Surprising. I mean, can you guys even believe that? It's unbelievable.
What?
I know. No one
dragons
would have
in
saw it
D&D.
coming. Well, I mean, it's definitely not in the name of the game, mate, so I definitely hear you there. But like I said, things were good. Adventurers were adventuring, movers and shakers were moving and shaking, and shit was just good in a medieval fantasy world. Now, the problem with everything that was going on was that the kids of Big Daddy Ao were getting a little bit too big for their britches. Instead of focusing on their followers and their non-profit endeavors, they were squabbling over power, which I know, super rare, right? Gods vying over power, I don't know. It seems a little unheard of to me. Now, the big caveat on all this is two specific individuals or gods. And this is where you enter in two of Daddy Dearest's finest stepsons. And you might know these names, Nate. Bane and Marcool. Nope, doesn't ring a bell for you?
A little bit. It's been a while.
It rings a bell.
Marcool sounds like he'd be fun to hang out with.
At least not really.
Yeah, no, I don't know about that. But for those of you who've recently spent some time hanging out around certain gates of Baldur's, they probably do sound a little familiar to you. So Bane and Marcool, the two had been hanging out in a shady part of Godtown and heard a story of these documents called the Tablets of Fate. And these two documents were basically divinely Xeroxed onto some stone tablets, and they were supposedly the owner manual for the entire universe. So basically Ao's playbook on how everything works. So being the power-hungry lunatics that they were, they decided to steal them. Now, this should have come as no surprise to anyone. Bane and Marcool were dicks long before they became gods, and that's exactly what they did. They snuck into Dad's office late one night after Ao had consumed too many cosmic scotches and snatched the tablets. And that was really, that simple event started the first major cataclysm in all of D&D. That was the moment where everything went awry for the very first time.
So set the stage here. You say cataclysm in D&D, and the gods are doing all this squabble stuff. At this point, is there mortals? Are they existing, and they're like going about their lives while the gods are figuring out who took my tablets?
Oh, absolutely. Everybody was already, everybody was kind of moving and shaking at that point. As I said, there were clerics, there were fighters, there were thieves, there were dwarves, elves, because elves were a class back then, weren't necessarily a race in any way, shape, or form, or lineage, as we say today. And then there was magic users, not mages, just magic users. So this cataclysm overall had a very specific name to it. It was called the Times of Trouble.
Classic.
It's a good name. They did well with it, I gotta say.
Alliteration, it rolls off the tongue.
It
Good
does.
soap opera name.
I thought it was good.
These are the times of trouble.
So
If you leave, I will follow.
You're sleeping with my wife, who's also my brother.
No, that was the
Cataclysm.
second major cataclysm.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So in terms of the times of trouble, how this all really went down is when Ao actually woke up, started getting over his hangover, he realized that his kids had taken his stuff. So he got really, really mad, and he marched every single one of the gods into the kitchen and said, listen, I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. Whoever took Daddy's tablets, please step forward. Like you would usually do, right? He wasn't mad, he was disappointed, but he was also uber mad at the same time. And of course, obviously, no one did step forward. So through what is universally known now as a terrible move, Ao just decided to punish everyone.
Right. Seems totally rational and reasonable.
Makes sense. I will turn this car around.
Yeah.
He was very Old Testament at the time. That was his big thing. Now, the stealing of the tablets were basically the straw that broke the camel's back for him. Ao was already miffed about that the god kids were fighting over portfolios and domains and not helping the little guy anymore. So as punishment, he cast down all the gods to Toril and forced them into their very mortal avatar bodies, and then basically took a spa day and did a little bit of R&R. He just kind of took off at that point. Now, I don't know if the spa part is canonical, but that's like how I like to picture it in my head. He would just kind of, he's like, he was steaming mad and then decided, you know what? I'm kicking them out of the house. Don't come back till the lights are back on. And, he got into the tub, played a little Sarah McLachlan, and just relaxed for a couple years.
I will remember you.
DMCA.
I think we're far past that right now.
If we get a DMCA because of how I just sang that, I think I'm going to get a Grammy.
Now, this whole act just royally fucked things up in a number of ways. And this is all mechanically speaking for the time. So first, divine magic ceased to function altogether unless a cleric was within 1 mile of their deity's avatar. That's basically, so all clerics or monks at the time were basically useless, which,
so, this mechanically
into
had repercussions on actual, further editions?
Oh,
are we talking 2E didn't have
we'll get into the specifics of that in a bit. But to answer your question, very much so, it had repercussions from a mechanical perspective.
Yeah.
The second was more of an outcome as opposed to being directly caused by the god's downfall. Upon finding herself on the mortal plane, Mystra number 1 looked around and said, "Fuck this! I'm going back to my room." So she decided to climb back up to the heavens using the celestial stairway, or as more current observers of D&D books would know as, the infinite staircase.
Ooh.
So if you've wondered where the infinite staircase comes from and where it goes up to the gods. I didn't know that until diving deeper into all of this.
Interesting.
Yeah. I had a moment as well.
So if you finish the infinite staircase, do you get the chance to ascend to godhood?
Can we mute her, Mike, please? Technically, in the book that came out, it was just stories from the infinite staircase. It wasn't actually you climbing the staircase in any way.
Are you joking?
No.
You don't climb a staircase, an infinite staircase?
No. Basically, what it
sham!
Well, it was basically. Sham! So if you read the book,
I signed up for stairs.
This is the biggest scandal that has ever been in D&D.
There's no explanation.
Screw the episode on Mystra.
How am I ending this chapter on the same elevation as last chapter?
Why would they name it that if you're not going up a goddamn staircase? It's
a metaphorical staircase.
I don't care. It would be so cool if it wasn't, though. You keep going up a staircase, you have to go through the doors.
I don't think Led Zeppelin was actually singing about a real staircase.
I think they were.
Maybe. I'm so disappointed in D&D right now that it isn't a fucking staircase.
So in fairness to the book, it was stories from the infinite staircase. And basically what it was a bunch
Oh.
of famous modules from D&D from years past that they kind of adapted and upgraded to 5th edition.
But then my next question would be stories from the Infinite Staircase of what? Like, what is the Infinite Staircase then?
Oh, it's the Celestial Stairway.
So all the stories and like mini adventures that you do would be adventures along the way to the celestialness.
Well, what do you think? What do you think you're climbing levels for?
I don't know. That's why I'm asking you. I've never played it.
It's
This
like
is
a
what-
net-
I don't know either. I'm just winging it at this point.
Oh my
Think of
god.
the celestial, the infinite staircase is pretty
Yeah.
much like a network of realms and planes.
Yeah.
That's not a staircase. That's
like
a
Tales
mind
from the Loop.
map. Yeah, it's a spider web. Why didn't they call it the spider web of lore of D&D? Or
You're right. That has such a better ring to it.
look, they had so much time to come up with a good name, and I'm sitting here in 2 seconds riffing. All right, so it's not.
I mean, to their defense, that riff wasn't the best, but it's okay.
Listen.
Yeah,
the
and in fairness, this
concept
is going
better,
this is
though.
going back to the late 70s when all of this transpired.
Yeah.
And it was one guy who wrote all this. Shout out Ed Greenwood.
Okay, fine. Whatever. We can move on. I'll get over
Okay,
it.
he's not too
All
far
right.
from me.
Does he really?
We'll talk off stream.
All right, fair enough. No, that's
let's
fair. That's
dox
fair.
Ed
Well,
Greenwood.
I was gonna say if Rayna's apparently really mad about all this, so at least we
She
have
should
an
go
address.
talk
If
to
she
him.
wants to go, she
Yeah.
can go march
Yeah.
up to his door and be like,
Bang on his
"Listen,
door.
infinite
Yeah.
staircase."
Why wasn't it a fucking spider web? And then she stabs him.
But come
Mr.
on.
Greenwood.
But
I
now think about
demand.
it though. How cool would it to be to play in a D&D campaign that is kind of like West Marches, but it's not. You can like join in whenever because they're sort of mini separate adventures, and you go up a staircase. And at the end of the staircase, you reach your ultimate goal. How cool would that be? It's like a city campaign, but in a staircase that has unlimited portals to other adventures. Just saying.
We
They
could call
missed
it-
out.
We could call it Tales of the Infinite Sadness.
I was gonna say infinite staircase. Oh my
Well, we'll
god!
see.
And then at the end, you just find out it's infinite, and you can never reach the top.
That's
Well,
the
good
idea.
segue at that point because Mystra climbed and she climbed and she climbed and she did make it to the top.
Oh,
Oh.
good for
So-
her.
It's a finite staircase then.
Well, I mean, for her, I think it's a finite staircase. I think
That's
she was
fair.
just kind of
You
going
gotta
back
have the
to
right
her room.
credentials.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And which is exactly what happened. She made her way up to the entrance to the divine realm. She reached for her keys, pulled them out from her ultra bag purse of holding, if you will. Went to stick it in the door, but found that her way was blocked. Seems that Daddy Ao had left one god up there, the guardian of the gateway known as Helm. Now, there isn't much known about the encounter. It's not really documented anywhere about what exactly happened, but the gist of it is that Mystra threw a temper tantrum and then basically got Thanos snapped. So, out of nowhere, well, no more god of magic. And
I
now
feel
that...
I feel like that's what every dungeon master wishes they could do to their party. Like, they finally meet the BBG and the party is like, meh, 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 sasses them off like, meh, meh, meh. And the DM's like, you know what? Fuck this. You all die. Okay. Anyway.
I'm going to write that down for our campaign. That's
Great.
that's what I'll do. That's what I'll do.
Noted.
So now that there wasn't any kind of stewardess of magic, the great and powerful Mystra, there was no one to regulate magic anymore. Or if you don't know, in D&D terms, magic is known as the weave, which represents the weave of magic that spreads out to all arcane users, which made arcane magic dangerously unpredictable. People were exploding, spells weren't working when they needed to. So now you had divine magic was a mess, arcane magic was a mess. There wasn't really anywhere you could go with magic at this point. And the last effect of Ao's punishment was the characteristically immortal and aloof deities were now completely vulnerable. Now, that's not to say they didn't still have devastating power, but their new meat suits had a very, very low tolerance to being stabbed. Very similar to Ed Greenwood.
Okay.
That was a callback to what Nate was saying.
Okay.
You know what? I'm going to stop wasting my A material on you people.
That's how I feel when I tell good puns and no one laughs.
Yeah, fair enough.
Someone's laughing somewhere.
Someone's laughing somewhere. Whether it's at you or with you, it's up to you.
Yeah.
So this pretty much threw Toriel into the ultimate chaotic time. The gods were missing, magic wasn't working, and Daddy Ao was nowhere to be found at this point in time. So, who were the mortals to turn to in this time of absolute need? That's right, a highly dysfunctional adventuring party. So let's sit and talk about this ragtag group of plucky heroes for a minute. Mm-hmm. And this is what I found really interesting, because going through this, I had heard some of these names before, but as I dove deeper and deeper into this story, I thought to myself, these are basically the main characters of original D&D. Like these are the big names who basically changed everything within the game itself. So first there was Midnight. Midnight was one of those overachiever types at school who, while everyone else was out partying, was reading spell books. You know the type, always taking notes, always raising her hand, never really getting into the social memes. Now she had a look of, I'm so much smarter than you, but I'm too polite to say it out loud. I mean, imagine a nerdy librarian with god-level self-doubt. That was Midnight. She had the academic pedigree, but absolutely zero chill. Honestly, she was basically like Hermione Granger of Faerun, except way more I need to save the world complex than can I please make you a time turner to help me with my homework kind of vibe. Now, in fairness, don't let it fool you. She was a top-tier mage. She was so much so that before the time of trouble even started, she was one of Mystra's chosen, which was the 7 sisters or 7 daughters, I believe. Peter, correct me if I'm wrong there.
7 sisters, yeah.
It was the 7 sisters? Okay.
Yeah.
She was one of the 7 sisters, and one of the like I said, the major chosen of Mystra at the time. Next up, we have Cyric, who is basically the poster boy for bad decisions and questionable choices. He was the guy in the bar who couldn't decide if he wanted to be a villain or just be really, really annoying. You can picture a young Cyric with an ever-present smirk showing up at the parties he wasn't invited to wearing a bad boy leather jacket and constantly asking people, what's the worst thing I can do right now?
Okay.
I've met a few of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we all have. And spoiler alert, he always picked the worst thing to do. He had that I'm pretending to be cool, but I'm actually super petty vibe to him. He was the kind of person who thinks sabotaging someone's romantic date is just a joke, but secretly is plotting to take over the local tavern just to make sure everyone understands how clever he is in all of this. And again, we're very dysfunctional. He was also one of the best at what he did. The fact that I think the best way to describe it is that his qualities sort of made him like a Lobo type figure if you're well versed in the DC Comics landscape. He might have been super bad, but that's also what made him super good at his job. That job being an assassin, of course.
Right. Okay.
Fitting. Very fitting. Very fitting.
And, of course, with the bad boy out of play, of course, we need our Boy Scout. Someone with a deep sense of justice, but is as socially awkward as a brick. And enter in Kelemvor Lionsbane. And that name alone. Kelemvor Lionsbane, that's a hero's name right now.
Also known as the Lord of the Dead and Judge of the Damned.
Very
Wow.
good, Peter. Very good. Now this was before those times. This was while he was still mortal at this point. And his motto, it was basically the law is the law, no exceptions. And he used to go around Faerun walking with this slightly too intense look, always ready to remind you that if you didn't pay your taxes, you might end up with a one-way ticket to hell, or whatever the equivalent was back then. He wasn't so much of a party guy as he was the guy who'd sit quietly in the corner and shake his head disapprovingly at anyone having fun. He believed in the rules, and if you broke them, you better believe Kelemvor was there. Except, of course, when it came to his own existence, where he kind of had the I'm just trying to do my job and make this death thing less morbid vibe, which never worked out in the long run for him. So with many alphas in the room right now, Midnight, Cyric, and Kelmvor, there was barely room for one more, unless that someone happened to be more of that sidekick role, and that's where Adon comes in. And oh boy, Adon. He was basically the world's worst hall monitor. So picture this. You're in the middle of an argument, someone's wrong, and here comes Adon, swooping in like he's already made a final ruling. Hold up. I'm going to solve this with my strong moral compass. This is the type of guy he was. Honestly, he had the kind of aura of a guy who spent hours explaining why the good guys always win, even though he had no particular fun stories to back it up in any way. Just a lot of rules and ethical guidelines. He had a one-track mind. I'm going to make the world better, except his idea of better was making sure everyone followed his version of the rules. His version of fun was getting into debates over whether or not it was morally right to eat dinner before sunset. And here comes the shocking part. He was a cleric. I'll give you a minute to let you pick your jaws up off the ground with that one.
Oh, wow.
I couldn't have known, honestly.
Who would have thought, right? And that was the adventuring party that was primarily responsible for saving the entire world. So, with the players now set, let's get on to the main event. And the main event was actually 3 adventure modules. The legendary trilogy, the Avatar trilogy, where the gods get kicked out of heaven, mortals accidentally become deities, and the entire Forgotten Realms setting is put through a celestial blender. And if you've ever wondered what happens when you throw the gods into a Mortal Kombat-style tournament and force some very underqualified adventurers to pick up the pieces, this is the series for you. Now, I have to say, with this one, while all this might sound good is an overall adventure, this is arguably the worst adventure module ever written. Like, by far, by none. And this is what drives me nuts. It was set up so perfectly. You could do so many different things with it. And they ruined it completely.
No.
So the real issue with it is that the player characters, the people actually playing,
Is devastated.
yeah, she's not happy about this at all.
No.
Now you might be asking why, and the reason for that being is that the player characters, so the people actually playing at the table, are never the main characters in this. Not only are you hyper railroaded into just following along a giant cut span that spans 3 module books, if you decide you're not into it, well, too bad. Paladins show up and kill you every single time. You want to go check out that tavern? Paladin's going to kill you. You want to go out and check out that forest? Paladin kills you. If you don't follow along the script 100% and just watch the cutscene unfold in front of you, Paladins kill you.
No, I hate this. I hate this for anyone who's ever played that. I hate that for the DM because they've got to get bored at the end of it. And I hate that for the players because they probably feel so frustrated. Why does this even exist?
Church nerds, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. But hey, fear not, my dear Tripper family, because I've broken down the entire trilogy so you never have to touch it with your Cheeto-crusted fingers, you bloody nerds.
Great.
So, Book 1, Shadowdale. Welcome to Godopolis.
I thought you were going to say Shadow Daddy.
Yeah, I almost said Shadow Daddy.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So this is the trilogy that essentially starts basically at the time of Troubles, which is basically, again, the Forgotten Realm version of gods behaving badly. The all-powerful god Ao is done with everyone's nonsense and decides to evict every deity from the heavens because they lost his most sacred artifacts, the Tablet of Fate. So now that the gods are stuck on the mortal plane like a bunch of disgruntled tourists, except instead of losing their luggage, they lose their divine powers. And naturally, this leads to immediate chaos. Mystra, Goddess of Magic, immediately gets wrecked by Helm, the celestial bouncer of the afterlife. Bane and Markul, the evil gods of tyranny and death, start plotting, and the poor mortal schmucks everywhere suddenly find themselves caught in basically a divine turf gang war that's happening all around us. And you start off basically in a tavern and then literally enter into the heroes. You have Midnight, you have Kelmvor, you have Cyric, and you have Adon, who just sort of show up. But no one really knows who these nobodies are. But somehow they're the most important people in all of Faerun because they end up babysitting one of Mystra's divine relics. And lucky for you, the actual players, you get to be their escort/bodyguard through the entire thing. While they're the prime target number one for every single god and power-hungry warlord out there, you get to babysit.
I'm starting to understand why not a lot of D&D players know anything about this adventure.
I know. It's probably one of the most influential adventures of all time. It is such a pivotal moment in all of D&D, and no one has any idea what this is. It was so difficult. Sorry, go ahead, Peter.
Yeah.
It's just literally watching an adventure unfold with you maybe interacting.
So you're like the NPC of someone else's adventure.
Yeah.
That's basically you're the NPC of you're basically just there to watch the movie.
It's the DM solo gaming with you watching at the table.
Hey, you guys want to come over as I read this book to you?
No.
Yeah.
These 3 books to you?
Oh.
Yeah, it's 3 modules long.
No.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's why they call it the Avatar trilogy. So, in terms of the story behind it, the entire book is basically them running for their lives, occasionally stopping to get arrested, fight some powerful wizards, and argue with each other the entire time. And then they eventually end up in Shadowdale, where Elminster, big famous name, drop right there, who's basically the Faerun equivalent of Gandalf if he liked his whiskey more than his wisdom, tries to help, but then immediately gets yeeted into another dimension.
Okay.
Yeah.
Seems fair.
And then final battle time. Here we go. The crew faces off against Bane and Markul's forces, and it all ends with somebody, okay, it was midnight, casting the fantasy equivalent of a nuke. Things explode, the party barely survives, and then they immediately realize things have only gotten worse. And that's how they wrap up the first book of this trilogy.
I can't explain to you how dissatisfied and annoyed I would be as a player, especially if it took let's be honest, as adults we can only even playing once a week is tough. So realistically, let's say at best we're playing twice a week. It probably takes at least 12 months to get through all that bullshit. So you spend a year of your life and that's how it ends. I would flip a table.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I am not coming back to D&D.
Yeah.
But wait, there's part 2 right around the corner. Book 2. Yep.
I would have quit.
Well, even if you were able to convince someone like, hey, hold on, don't worry, there's 3 parts of this adventure, it gets better. For the players, it never does. But the story gets cooler.
Okay.
So book 2 is called Tantris, which is a city within Torel. And I'd like to call it the book of this is fine, everything is on fire meme. So after barely surviving book 1, the team heads to Tantris, a city that's about to have the worst week of its existence. The moment they arrive, they get falsely accused of murdering Bane, the literal god of tyranny, which is hilarious because there's no way this party is competent enough to pull off a divine assassination. And then from there, cue Prison Break. Some more running for their lives and an awkward alliance with Cyric, who at this point is visibly now foaming at the mouth with betrayal energy. But wait, things then get worse, because Bane isn't actually dead. He's just temporarily inconvenienced, and now he's out for revenge. Then the actual city of Tantris gets obliterated in an epic divine battle, which you don't partake in as the players. You just sit and watch from afar, which the party somehow survives thanks to the magical plot armor divine intervention. But the takeaway is clear. The world is falling apart, and these random adventurers are very bad at fixing it. Where they go from here is they now have to go get the super important magical MacGuffin, which is Mystra's relic, to Waterdeep before Cyric inevitably does something super evil, which, spoiler alert, he's about to do.
Okay. I feel like this is a great cautionary tale for those DMs who spend so much time making a really cool story and then they just railroad their players down it.
So was this just was this a well-received adventure?
No, not at
Well,
all.
yeah.
Yeah.
How could it be? How could it be?
It is universally penned as one of the worst modules ever written for D&D.
Oh, phew.
Well, you heard it here first, y'all. We're reading it so you don't have to play through it.
Well, exactly. And the interesting thing about all of it is that this is kind of, I almost feel like this is where the saying comes from, is if you want to write a book, don't play D&D.
Yeah. Seriously.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's a very good point. D&D is at its strongest is collaborative storytelling, right?
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
And this is like this is so hyper railroaded. It's It's welcome to D&D Airlines. It's, you want to get off the rail, then you're jumping out of the plane to your death.
Yep.
Yeah. No, it's strange. I mean, I guess they would have still been kind of playing around with the format back then, and I guess even the original concept of D&D was like it's just a dungeon. There's no story, so that alone is sort of on a track even to begin with.
What edition
So
is it again?
Well, here's the tough part about all of this is that it kind of had to happen in a very specific way. Now, I don't know why they decided to do it like instead of a published story to do it in an adventure module, but because of the repercussions that this overall story had on D&D, which we'll get to in a second, it kind of had to be railroaded. But it's almost like if you were going to railroad the players, just make it rules directly within the module that the party is the main character party. So someone plays Cyric, someone plays Kelmfor, someone plays Midnight, someone plays Add-on.
Okay.
So,
We're not sold.
I know.
on this.
Listen,
We're all like,
I'm trying my best here with all of this.
It's not your fault, Dave. What do
Well,
you
I feel
mean you're
responsible
trying-
now. I feel responsible.
Oh,
Just
don't.
telling this story, I feel bad as a dungeon master.
Okay. Well, you can't take responsibility for something.
Someone's missteps.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get all the hate on the internet for this. And that essentially ends book 2.
Oh, good. And there's 2 more?
Nope, there's only one. So
Oh,
the last one
okay.
is called Waterdeep, aka Cyric goes full supervillain at this point.
Okay.
So by now, everyone should have figured out that Cyric is up to no good. Midnight and Kelmfor are now too busy bickering and having awkward romantic tensions to do anything about it, and Add-on has fully committed to his useless cleric arc. Now, meanwhile, while all of this is happening, Cyric is over here actively plotting and deciding no one stops him because reasons. He's literally having expositions of how he's going to be doing evil things. No one stops him for any reason.
Okay. Okay.
Why? Why would I stop him?
I have so many questions
Why not?
for the
Why not?
writers.
And while all this happening, they're traveling to their next town with this magical MacGuffin from which is one of Mystra's relics, and then finally they get to Waterdeep, where all of the gods are now fighting over who gets their divine powers back, and it turns into more of like a celestial version of Game of Thrones.
Okay.
But then Cyric
Now I'm back
decides,
in.
yeah. But then Cyric decides, screw it, I'm just going to kill my way to the top. He basically betrays the entire party to the shock of literally no one, steals
Right.
the divine artifact, and proceeds to go on the biggest murder spree in divine history. Just basically starts offing gods with a magical god-killing sword.
To clarify, there's nothing the players can do to
Nope.
attempt to stop this.
Nothing the players can do about all this.
All right.
So while all of this is happening, and you're literally sitting here watching this all go down, Kelmfor gets killed.
Okay. Great.
He's just dead. But hey, Don't worry, he gets better and decides to become the new god of death.
Fair. That's what I would do.
Well, I mean, clearly someone needs to clean up Siric's mess that he's making at this point. While he continues to go on and kill, Midnight, despite not really wanting the job, gets forced into godhood and becomes the new Mystra.
Sorry, Cyric?
No, Mystra. Or sorry,
Oh, no.
Midnight.
Midnight. Okay.
And Midnight, I think, is the version we see in Baldur's Gate 3.
Correct.
Okay.
So Midnight is essentially Gale's boo in Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Spoilers from Act 1, I think. Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah. 1 or 2. I can't remember. And then, of course, there's Add-on who, well, he's just kind of there rethinking all of his life choices as all of this happens.
That's fair.
So let's take a final score in all of this. Cyric wins at the end of the day, becoming the new god of tyranny and spite and murder.
Right.
But in an insane way that guarantees he'll eventually get dethroned, which we'll talk about. Kelmvor kind of also wins, but in a more brooding, emo type of way, now becoming the new god of death. Midnight gets tricked into godhood, which she doesn't want in any way, shape, or form. Adon somehow fails upward in all of this. And then all of a sudden, Ao shows up because during this time period, while all of this is happening, somehow the party has collectively found the Tablet of Fate. Just by and just by chance.
By fate?
It's by fate, exactly, by fate. They just kind of stumble into these artifacts throughout the adventure. It's just kind of, it's like, oh, well, there's a Tablet of Fate. Cool. Oh, there's the other one. Great. We're good now.
Okay.
So once the Tablet of Fate is found, the Mortal Kombat Gods tournament is finally over. Ao finally shows up again. The one who's responsible for this entire mess gets presented the tablets, these ultra-powerful manual to the entire universe, which kicked this entire thing off in the first place, looks at everybody and says, well, that was a disaster, reveals that the tablets of fate have no real relevance in any way, shape, or form, crushes them to dust, and then dear old daddy Ao goes out to get milk and doesn't return for
What's
millennia.
the point of
This
this,
is like the
Dave?
first time when he got cigarettes.
Dave, I'm about to have a friggin' breakdown over here, my man.
I
Can you
know,
imagine
I
playing
know.
this? You've saved
No.
all your money, and you've got all these books, and you're like, guys, I can't wait to play. And your friends are like, fuck you. Like, what are you doing here? Sorry. I don't
Yep.
want to get angrier, but I can't help it, Dave.
It's almost as it's I mean, thank God we have good examples of proper writing, like, I don't know, say for example, Rings of Power, right? Now that could
God
be
damn
turned into
Thought you were gonna shout out our own campaign. Hashtag propaganda campaign 3. Go watch our stuff. Okay.
And that, my dear friends, is how a group of nobodies became the most important people in all of Faerun, all because the gods couldn't keep track of their paperwork.
No, okay. So hold on. We just need to discuss the fact that the whole reason that Ao he threw a temper tantrum over these fucking tablets,
Mm-hmm.
and then he got them back and was like, "Never mind. I didn't. This is all a joke."
Pretty much. Well, he was just kind of like, you know what? These don't really matter. I'm just going to destroy them.
Who wrote this? Actually, don't tell me because I don't want people to email them or anything. Oh my god! You know what?
Yeah, it sounds like they kept trying to like let's release this adventure, and then now, I mean, full history. This isn't like obviously the only thing they brought out within that year. They just would have been sort of built on this throughout the years.
And I know we're memeing on it the entire time and how shitty it is to railroad and things along those lines. But there's a reason for it. As I said, from a mechanical standpoint, there is a reason for it being railroaded. Because this entire story that I've just told you was the reason they went from first edition to second edition.
I need way more context.
This was the literally in-game world reason why the
Why the
entire
rules
game of
changed.
D&D,
Okay.
why the rules changed, why everything changed from first edition to second edition. This is the canonical lore of the change of editions.
Right. So Ao's fucked off and things changed, basically.
Well, along with the changes of the gods, the recreation of the entire, basically almost the entire pantheon at that point in time, the splitting of the worlds. There was two separate worlds. There was Terrell, and then the other one that really no one really cares about in any way. But yeah, this was the how they changed when they changed the mechanics of the classes, where they started to introduce new classes to things. This is how they explained it from a lore perspective.
Okay, hear me out. Hear me out. It's a cool concept. How much, this is going somewhere, how much do you think it costs to put this out? Like, make a campaign setting like this and publish it and do all that. How much do you think it costs?
Oh, it's difficult to say. This was made so far back, right?
Could we
Yeah,
say
this
like
was-
$1 million?
No,
No.
Not
not even remotely.
No.
Like, I'd be shocked.
500,000.
I'd be shocked if this went over 100K. Like, I'd be shocked if
Really?
it went over. Yeah,
Was
I mean,
it
this
one
was
writer?
well, it was one, and then some subsequent writers that assisted with it. But for the most part, it was it was like this was literally the like 1980s of D&D, where it wasn't the powerhouse that we know today. It wasn't like, artists were charging a phenomenal rate for things.
Right.
The dungeon maps were just scrawl little scribbles on a piece of paper kind of thing. It wasn't in like heavy bound book.
Right,
It was just
okay.
like more or less a magazine at that point. It was
Okay,
this was
okay.
very, very early D&D.
Okay, because I was here's what I was thinking. This would have been super cool as like an animated D&D story, or honestly, even a D&D movie, I guess. But to transition between editions, kind of like when they release those like trailers at like VidCon or like, I don't know, San Diego Con or whatever the fuck they are. And they do these big movie trailers, and then everyone's like, oh, Mr. Doom or whatever. And freaking Robert Downey
Damn it!
Jr.
Can I
You
leave
almost
now?
had me.
I wasn't mad at Rayna until Mr. Doom, and now I'm mad.
Mr. Doom.
Mr.
Yeah.
Doom.
He is a doctor, damn it.
Okay,
Yeah, I
I'm
know.
He's
sorry.
a PhD.
Yeah, he went to school for this kind of stuff, Raina. He
didn't go to
took
school to get
Doomology,
called
okay?
Mister.
7 years in Doomology he had to take.
Sorry. All I'm saying is that I think the story is cool. The medium in which they chose to present it in leaves a little metallic taste in my mouth.
And you know what? That's fair. That's absolutely a fair comment. And really the entire reason why I needed to kind of tell this story is so that we can actually do a part 2 of this episode where we start getting into the actual murder of Mystra, aka Midnight, how that affected the D&D world, and what brought on the spell plague, which is, hold on to your butts, because that is a whole nother book of worms that had, again, major repercussions, where this was kind of the changeover from first edition to second edition. The spell plague and what happened with the murder of Mystra is what took us from third edition to fourth edition.
Okay. I like that. I'm you know what? Despite my dissatisfaction as a forever D&D player in the story you just shared with us, I'm interested to find out the other death of Mystra and the spell weave and all that stuff. That sounds really cool.
Yeah, you need a little backstory on who the players were, why they were who they were, and a build up to kind of where this all goes, because it is still kind of a murder mystery in terms of the murder of Mystra, but I think we'll get into that next week, because that's, like I said, it's another deep dive into the lore and history of the major events within the D&D landscape.
And I will be reenacting one or two of them live.
I will pay you $5 to do that.
Full Mystra cosplay.
Yeah, I'll pay you $5, but you have to have at least 3 costumes and at least 5 different voices.
5 different voices. Come on.
Yeah.
Making
Can you
it
be
easy
every
for me.
persona of Mystra?
Fine. Listen.
Yeah.
Right up to flirty midnight.
I want
Hi.
I want the sassy midnight.
Oh, I'm gonna have to put flirty and sassy together. Like,
Fair.
you don't know me. Owe me anything. I don't fucking know.
I like it already. We need to get you like a broody black wig where like, the one hair strand falls like across the eye like this, and then you
And I
can
just constantly keep
do-
doing this.
I just did the head
For the
thing.
folks at home, I head flip at the same time as Rayna.
Yeah.
Hair flip, head flip, whatever this is. I'm bald.
Yeah. Oh.
I can't wait to see emo Peter.
Goodnight.
So Nate, what did you think?
It's a lot, but I like the justification in changing systems with lore. I like that they sort of do that. I always wonder if it's chicken or the egg, right? Do they come in and be like, okay, here's what we're changing with the game. Now we have to try to justify a reason of why that's happening in universe. But
Oh,
I'm at least glad they do it. It's way better than just skipping over it and being like, yeah, clerics, they're not as good as they used to be. No reason why. It's fine. So
well, I was, I was hoping that they were going to do more of that in newer editions, because they did it from first edition to a second edition. They didn't really do anything from second edition to third edition. They just kind of said, well, we're just starting a new edition. But I mean, that was more so at the time for some legal reasons that were happening with the creator, Mr. Gygax, and his soon-to-be ex-wife, I think, at the time. But they brought the idea back from the switch from 3.x, we'll call it, because there was 3 and 3.5 were kind of split off between D&D and Pathfinder, OSR and D&D OSR and Wizards of the Coast kind of split off from one another. And I was hoping there was rumors that it was going to happen because of an adventure that they had released about some mysterious obelisks, which I thought was really cool with how they were doing. They were kind of setting it up, because if you go through each one of the 5 ebooks, there's reference to these giant black obsidian pillars throughout some of the books, and they just kind of drop it in certain places. Apparently there was supposed to be a culmination in the Netherdeep book. Which was the Netherdeep book called?
I don't know.
I can't remember what it was.
Oh,
something about Netherdeep, Call of the Netherdeep.
Call of the Netherdeep, yeah,
something like that. And I was hoping that they were going to do something with that, and there was going to be a big reveal that it was all a plan of Vecna, and it was going to be the big rise and return of Vecna through the entire thing, which I thought was going to be a pretty cool thing. Also, welcome in, Raiders. We're just wrapping up our podcast right now. And I was really hoping that that's where they were going to go with it, where it was just like the lead into the 5.5 2024 version was going to be, this big battle against Vecna, and then it was going to change things, and we were going to see a massive leap in terms of either it be the setting or the lore around it all, but I guess that didn't really shake out because of many, many reasons.
I just want to say, are we really wrapping up? Because we have community submissions left.
Well, we're wrapping up the story part of it, so we'll hop into community submissions. Okay. And if you guys want to submit for some of our upcoming podcasts, come join us on the Discord. We always post the link within there. And if you have any questions, stories you want to tell about the topic at hand that we're going to be talking about in the next week, come on and join us.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, here, I'll put our Discord link there.
All right, let's kick us off. Let's get into a little bit of viewer submissions.
Oh, okay. Oh my God! Yay! My favorite part. Ready? Viewer submissions. Okay, we all sing it together. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Viewer submissions.
It's isolate Peter's part. Take that.
Yeah, let's just do that. We'll just take that.
Okay. So this week we asked for any viewer submissions that revolved around anything to do with Death of Gods, world ending, or world changing campaign stuff. We got a few submissions. I'm wondering maybe I should save one for next week. But okay, we'll start here. So we've got this submission is from Con.
God,
Dave, you have to do the thing.
he did. Oh, there it is.
Okay, there we go. He, him. This is a horror story. One time, hold on. Sorry, I need to move this so I can read it better. One time, I had a player that was obsessed with DM versus player. It was my first legit campaign as a DM, and I was not knowledgeable enough to deal with it. He would ask for outrageous things, purposefully quote rules incorrectly to his advantage, and would not accept he was wrong when provided direct from source quote rulings. After 30 sessions, we finally arrived to an event known as the Cataclysm. As I am vividly describing the moment a Titan unexpectedly explodes from a mountain to begin the Cataclysm, he makes a fart noise. The table goes silent. I let him sit in stupid for about 10 seconds, and then I moved on. Ruined everyone's immersion in the biggest moment to that point. Then, for the final session, he messages me 5 minutes before to cancel, thinking I would move the session when I said I could not. Honestly, it was a relief, and I had a suspicion that he was doing it to bother me. This was confirmed when he stayed in the voice chat and spammed messages in text chat throughout the finale, making fun of me and other players. If you're wondering why I didn't kick him, it was in a finale, and he would have spammed every player personally to distract and ruin it. I was not going to give him that. Thanks to all but Runa, but also Runa. Okay. Thanks.
What?
That's brutal. That is brutal.
I've had someone personally take the sails out of like a big reveal moment at a home game, and there's nothing more defeating for everyone at the table too when it's like a build up to a big reveal and someone's, I don't remember what they're doing, but I remember they're just kind of like they're trying to tough talk the BBEG, and everyone else is like really in role playing. It's like, oh yeah, you're really gonna do that. It was kind of that situation, and it was just, oh god, I'm so happy I killed this character. But you know, it's so disrespectful on the player's side too. You got to have those rules lined up at the beginning of the game.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna get graced with terrible players, once in a while in chat, kind of thing. And it's a really, really tough call what to do at that point with them. I would agree with Peter and just kill them off. But that's just me. That's
okay. So it just was a roll of the dice. I did not kill him. This is just what happened during the fight. He ended up dying.
Sure.
A single rock fell from a very high place.
Don't stand in the fire. Simple.
Well, I think, okay, I feel like with Con's submission, there was a little bit, I think Con did the right thing in this situation because he did put the little sort of addendum at the bottom saying that he didn't kick him because he knew that he would have spammed every player personally to distract and ruin it. Sometimes in those situations, especially if these aren't your friends, like if you're playing with people you're never going to see again, sometimes it's better to just take the more passive approach and protect everyone at the table. He wasn't going to be there already. He's not playing because he couldn't make it, right? So he's not going to be at the table for the finale, so everyone's good. But by actually kicking him out, knowing that he'd be the type of person to technically harass people, it's better to just let that fade away into the distance and never happen again. And then if he crosses the line, then you can take more serious steps, I guess.
Yeah it's communication, right? Well, ultimately comes down to.
Yeah, and I mean it happens, and I say this because I know it was one of Con's first tables. And clearly, this is the origin story of his warlord arc in terms of D&D.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It like literally it all makes sense now. I mean, it's just all of the pieces are coming together, which, you know, full on respect, my friend. But even as a newer player or a newer DM in running the game, you really have to be able to have that not anger towards certain people, but you have to have that level of assertiveness to be able to take them aside and be like, listen, because it sounds like this was leading up to a point throughout the campaign that Khan was running, and he was a problem player at that point, and you know, it doesn't have to be. You don't have to be rude about it. You don't have to be demeaning and be like, well, I'm kicking you out. But sometimes it's just not the right table for some people. And, you know, the first instinct is, especially in D&D nowadays, is that whole concept. And I've seen it with older players or players who've played older editions, because back in the day, it was very clear that it was DM versus player, right? That was kind of that was the trope that existed. And as we kind of grew and learned as more of a storytelling collaborative effort in all of this, you know, it got to the point of where it's like, okay, you can separate the DM from the BBEG, but it took time for everybody to get there. And there's some older players who they still have that kind of mentality, right? I've played with quite a few players who have been like, oh, well, you know, I don't trust you. You're the DM. You're trying to kill us, blah, 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 blah. When in reality, it's like, no, I'm challenging you to become the heroes that need to save the world. And that's okay to play that version of the DM. That's the right way to do it, because yeah, sometimes you gotta get a little dirty with things in order to build up those heroes. Because if it's just a story about things always going the player's way, and then eventually they just go up to the big bad, they kill, you know, couple strokes and they're all of a sudden dead, that's not satisfying for anyone. There's got to be some level of adversity there.
It definitely takes a little bit of faith, because I mean, I think that, like Peter and I, we were talking this just in our own chats there over the week, but like it's a hard thing to DMs generally all have good intentions. Players all have good intentions. It's a hard thing for the DM to be like, I really want to show how powerful my bad guy is, and I'm going to do X because of it and take away player agency. You know, kill a character or burn a town down or whatever, right? And the players don't feel like they can step in. It takes a bit of a leap of faith from the player's perspective to assume that we're not all doing this competitively, and that this is going to lead somewhere. And like every kind of arc in a good movie, there is that hero's moment of things go bad, right? And from the ashes you arise and become stronger.
Yeah.
So you know, it's a very easy trope to write into. I feel like as a DM, you really got to know the party that you're presenting this opportunity to, and hopefully that they do sort of have that security with you. But yeah, it's a tough thread to weave. I personally, like, if you ever feel like anybody at your table is new to this or is even just coming out of their shell as a role player, simple is better, right? You know, even if you want to give them this cutscene moment, but it could feel to them that, you know, this is the moment that they kind of got turned off on things. So, you know, I definitely see it from both sides. If the player's ever too much of a recurring difficulty, then that's a whole other conversation. But yeah, I just, you know, from a player side, have some faith in your DM, and hopefully the people that you chose to spend 2 hours of time, that is very rare nowadays that you have, is somebody that you picked of good faith that you know will sort of, you know, reward those down opportunities with an upswing, right?
Yeah. It's there's, like I said, I mean, you're always going to face some problem players, and you know, you can try and work with them, find a middle ground with them, but you know, sometimes it's just not the right table. And you know, I've talked to friends about this many times in the past, is that just because we all play the same game doesn't mean that this is the right table for everyone. You know, and that doesn't mean that you're not friends anymore. You know, just because I don't want to play Call of Duty and I'd rather play, you know, Stardew Valley, doesn't mean that me not playing with my friends means I'm not friends with them anymore. It's just, it's a different type of game that I like to play. So you can always have that conversation with people and say, okay, you know, you sit them down and say, this isn't the type of story that we're trying to tell here. This isn't the type of DM that I am. Is there a reason why? Is there a reason why you think it's kind of me versus you right now? Is there something I can do to change that sort of thing? Because that's not what I'm trying to do here. And if they just come out and they're like, no, it's player versus DM, that's how the game is played, then it's just a matter of like, these aren't the rules, the same rule sets we're playing on. We're playing a different game. And that's okay because you like your game and I like my game, but it's not the same game. So maybe we should call it quits here.
Yeah.
Yep. Very much so. Well said.
Okay, are we ready to move on to the next one?
What else we got?
Are. Thank you, Con, for the submission. We appreciate you, brother.
Thank you, Con. All right, this next submission is from Atari2600. Question: what are your thoughts on evolving a first-level character in War of the Gods type stories? Their ability to be truly impactful is very limited, but then a couple hobbits did sneak through Mordor and dunk the evil god's favorite jewelry.
Who wants to take this one first?
Peter, what do you got?
Wait, you want to say it to me again?
Yeah. Ready, everybody? What are your thoughts on involving first level characters in War of the Gods type stories? Their ability to be truly impactful is very limited, but then a couple hobbits did sneak through Mordor and dunk the evil god's favorite jewelry.
Well, here's the thing. You look at like Greek mythology and like Greek legends, every character more or less has some sort of demigod sort of upbringing, and they don't realize it, but they all start from humble beginnings. I think having level 1 players in a god level threat, you can, little things can topple. I'm trying to try. There's a word. There's like a saying for it, but like small things can make big waves. Essentially,
ripples can
big
make
ripples.
waves.
Big ripples can turn into a giant tsunami or something like that. So I think it's on the DM a little bit too, to kind of force the campaign into you're not going to be facing this god in the way you think it's one-on-one. It's going to be more so like, if I would put it, is like you're working with a group of people to affect these things. You're working with a larger organization to help bring these gods down. But yeah, or you can go like the other way. If you want to make them demigods, you put them to like level 10, and that's where they start out, kind of thing.
I do want to say, piggybacking off what Peter just said, and also the reference that was used about Lord of the Rings with Frodo and Sam. I think the thing is with Frodo and Sam, even if we're going to say they're level 1, which I feel like they're probably a little bit more, especially by the end of the adventure, but whatever. The bigger issues, like the wars and stuff, were being handled by the level 15 and up characters. Like Aragorn, Gandalf, all those people were fighting all the other wars while Frodo and Sam were essentially on a stealth mission. So I think like it just has, piggybacking off what Peter said, it has to be like sort of made clear to the players that like, hey, you're not the focus of this, and either addressing before or through an NPC or something, like an NPC being like, we're going to go deal with this war, but we need someone to sneak in through the back cave and essentially poison this guy's drink or something. That kind of thing, I think could work. So I think it needs to be made clear to the players, because I think like as someone who plays a lot, I would assume we're going to eventually level up and eventually take on this immense BBEG eventually, unless it's made clear that no, we're doing like a level 1 adventure. You can't really have. I don't want to say can't, because nothing's impossible in D&D, but I feel like it would be extremely difficult for anything to make sense for a level 1 character to kill or defeat a level 20 god-ending, world-changing situation, unless it was by accident.
I feel like there's a power hierarchy. A god is also above a level 20, right?
Well, yeah,
level,
this is
level
what I'm
20
saying.
is just you're good within the pool that you're in, but once you step into godhood, that's a whole other weight class of power, right? It's it brings me back, and Dave, maybe you'll entertain me on this one, but like I guess gods, what is story writing? You know,
Whoa, we got
Oh
real
my
deep for a
God.
second.
so-
Holy shit!
but if we go back, I mean, gods are really just used as vices in stories to do fantastical things, right? So to lift up
Yeah.
characters, right? You know, you have Zeus to show how powerful humans can be in form of adversity, right? So gods exist because, you know, through your own beliefs, but either way, people have put the pens to paper and have made their interpretation of what gods are. So in when it comes to what story, like gods are normally just used as that crux, right? But I fully feel like Secret Wars. Marvel did an event back in 2015 called
Yep.
the Secret Wars, and I'm sure you'll see it in film form. That it will not be as good as the 4-year run comic that it took to tell this story, but very well done. And Dave, I don't know if you remember a little character by the name of Miles Morales.
Sure do.
Do you remember what Miles did during
Thank
Secret
God.
Wars?
Hey, listen,
his
God,
big-
thank God he had that burger, baby.
He had a hamburger in his pocket. So Molecule Man, who essentially is might as well be his own form of god or demigod, can construct universes, make things, is trapped by Doctor Doom and being used to sort of create this universe that he's made. It's a long story. It's really well done. Go read it.
Sorry, are
but
you referring to Mr. Doom?
Yeah.
yeah,
Mr.
Mr. Doom.
Okay,
Get it right.
yeah, sorry, I always
Yeah.
get the two confused.
Yeah. So God Emperor Mr. Doom is kind of has made this whole new world and has trapped this man to do so. The Spider-Man kind of stumble across it. Miles Morales, as you guys kind of know from the movies and such, very similar backstory. His universe was from the Ultimate Universe where his Spider-Man died. Miles has taken over, great power, great responsibility, all that stuff, but he's still just a 15-year-old kid. A 15-year-old kid in the presence of a god who has made a universe, the only universe in existence at this point, and can literally do whatever he wants. He can undo the strings of all reality and make so nothing ever existed and never will exist. But what does he want? A bite to eat, because he hasn't had one in a long time. And Miles Morales had this old ass hamburger sitting in his pocket. So when everything cleared at the end of Secret Wars, his interaction with this god allowed him to exist in this new universe that has been constructed. His is now gone and done with, but his life, his family, his friends, his parents, everything came over and was reset. His mom was reborn. So I feel like in the story of like mortals playing with gods are in a completely different category, right? The only time that you'll ever have a moment where it can be you fighting a god is if you're fighting with a god, right? So in my opinion, yeah, you could 100% have those level 1 characters come in and do fantastical things next to gods, but it doesn't always have to be conflict. It doesn't always have to end with this giant effort that we go and fight the evil version of whatever. You can just have a hamburger, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I 100% agree with you, Nate. And I mostly agree with what everybody said. I think that, there's two ways that you can really play all of this. Number one is in an event like a God of War or Wars of the Gods, the backdrop can be a character in itself. The idea of the war happening all around you, I think, is so much of an allure for players. And even if they start at level 1, you can have the war already raging on. You can have it so that, one small step of this level 1 party is the catalyst that kicks off the entire war. Maybe they broke a bottle that held a powerful genie that went and raised a bunch of gods, and now shit's just popping off. They're directly responsible for it.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, it's there's a couple tropes out there like that. And then having them kind of be that responsibility where there's tons of people that are looking for them or working with them, but they're not ready to take on the big bad at this point. When it comes to the War of Gods kind of storyline, it has to be, if you want to do an evolution of that, it has to be a slow burn. You have to start and take those steps upward, where it's a matter of, okay, we're literally on level 1 right now. Now we have to go do this one thing that doesn't really have huge impact on the overall war. I'm not going to fight a god tomorrow, but I need to go get this one thing, or I need to go find this artifact or tome or something that has some lore behind it. You can have small events that lead into the war and have effect on the overall war, but it has to be balanced for a level 1 party. And as they grow and as they get more powerful, they can meet new allies, they can be divvied up in larger responsibilities. And that's kind of how I like to organize my overall campaigns, where it's a matter of like, you have the big bad way up here, and they're doing big bad things to destroy the world or take it over or do whatever the case is. But there's always steps in between. And we as writers, as DMs, we always want to skip to the good part. We always want to get into the meat and potatoes, like, oh yeah, this is the big reveal. This is going to blow everybody's mind. But if you take a step back and really think about it from the enemy's perspective, the big bad's perspective, there's things that need to get accomplished. Even if you are a god, there's a pantheon, there's other gods, there's things that need to get done before they can be the ultimate rulers, the divine overlords at this point. So that's how I would kind of evolve into that final battle, where it's a matter of they're more of a thorn in the side. They're tiny little ants that keep biting at the heels of the god. And, at first, they're not going to care. They're going to say, oh, well, that plan got screwed, but I've got 18 other plans that are happening right now. And then they bite again, and then they bite again. And as every bite they take, every chunk they take out of that ankle, they get a little bit more powerful as they go. They get a little bit more influential as they go. And then when you've hit a level where you're feeling comfortable, where they can start interfacing with the big bad, not necessarily going directly up against them, but now the big bad is looking at the party and saying, these guys are a problem. I need to take care of them somehow. I'm going to send my generals after them. I'm going to send my minions after them. I'm going to send the powerful people, but not my level of power, because they're still beneath me at this point. And again, every time they take out one of their minions, every single time they take out one of the captains, they grow in power a little bit more. Maybe they get artifacts that are worthy to go up against gods. This is how I would evolve my campaign in terms of going from level 1 all the way up to, hey, I'm about to go fight a god right now. It's a slow burn. Use the backdrop of the war itself to build that intrigue, to build that immersion. That is what's going to hook the players to get into it. The more they see happening around them that they're not directly involved in, that's going to give players the itch, like, I want to jump in on this. Like, I want to, like, there's so much crazy stuff happening. This city just fell, or, this god just died. I want to go in, I want to go do those things. And it's a matter of, no. Take your time. Go through each one of the adventures as the DM, building to those moments, because the payoff in the long run is going to be so much sweeter at that point, where they do finally face off, because you've just taken them through the hero's journey. And that, going back to what Nate was saying, that is why we tell these stories with the gods, because you allow them to go through the hero's journey. And the second way around it is, if you really want a level 1 party to go up against God, just make them the god of ants.
Right. Yeah.
Done.
I mean, that's a workaround.
They don't have to be a fancy god.
Yeah.
How fun would that be,
the
though?
hamster god.
You run into like a hermit druid who's like, I am the god of ants, and then they just like kick him, like, ow, and just falls over, and that's
exactly.
it.
Going back to what we were saying earlier, does a 4 hit you? There you go. That's
Right.
Okay, last one. It's story time. It's a world changer story time, submitted by the very lovely Bally Lolly. I've mentioned this almost 2-year campaign, A Time or 1,000. So here we go again. After many in-game years and real-life months of playing weekly, my friend Rosaline and I, Vrim, had become quite powerful, serving the interest of an ancient red dragon. This is 20-odd years ago, so warlock patrons weren't a thing yet, but that was close to the relationship. After defeating dragons and various monsters throughout the realms, we were seen as heroes for our deeds. However, in secret, several of our friends that could only play once a month at the time would come along and secret away several monsters for our later purpose of turning Rosaline into a dark goddess. She was the charismatic face with quite a following and even managed to marry the prince of a powerful kingdom. We hit level 20 and it was time to use a combo of high level magic shenanigans and homebrew to infuse her with the lives of the collected powerful magical monsters. Rosaline became the queen, like capital, the queen. And we used that power to not only take over the kingdom for ourselves, but also kill every last dragon on the continent, including Vrim's old patron, eventually forged into a lovely set of armor. We later tried to defeat our old characters as heroes of the realm, but ended up just leaving that entire portion of the map as a hostile place to sneak through as quickly as possible. Our best friends forever girl boss duo are still kicking around in that DM's world as options for villain clerics and paladins to choose as a source of power. I even had the pleasure of writing a missive in character and mailing it to the DM's son 15 years later. He was playing a fighter that had risen up the ranks in Vrim's army to become a general.
I love that.
I adore
Yeah.
it. I adore it.
Yeah.
That is the magic
payoff.
of all of this. You know, as a DM, I would sit back and just be like, this is the ideal player. This is the player that, you know, because you don't see that happen very often done in the proper context where a character eventually turns into a villain. Because usually it's like the character turns into a villain just because they tried to murder the rest of their companions, and it was, you know, it's so satisfying to hear about a player who, you know, I would say did it the right way.
Yeah. I also love those like legacy stories, how sometimes your D&D campaign can transcend not only campaigns but generations.
Yeah.
And I feel like even for the 15-year-old who was playing in Vrim's army, it would have been so cool to be like, this is the original player who sent you this like video or whatever, voice note or whatever it was, in character with your character, knowing that, you know, however many years ago that happened. That's honestly one of the coolest things about D&D and TTRPGs in general, like the collaborative storytelling that can happen not just in one story, but multiple and spanning across so many people if you really want it to.
Yeah. Like in a smaller scales, my brother played a character, Ubysarus Carlisle, who's like this traveling necromancer with like a zombie butler. And he had an ability, because he couldn't play all the time, to send messages, but he would send messages via like WhatsApp voice notes, and then I would pull the person into another room and be like, you have a message from Ubysarus. And then it would, and so, but like it was even, but then 2 years went by. My brother was in Australia, couldn't play. Ubysarus sent a message to someone that day, and it was like, it was so special because the light up that you get from that person, like, oh my god, he's still around, he's still a thing. And so like I'm waiting for one day to pull Ubysarus out again.
Honestly, it's amazing to pull old characters in. I mean, we're doing it right now in our campaign where it's heavily starting to bring in some of the old characters. I mean, granted, they haven't aged too long. We've only been 4 years into it, and the trilogy that is this overall campaign, right? But that whole notion of players becoming central characters, I mean, that's like the backbone of D&D itself. You know, you think back, and characters like Mordenkainen and Tensor and Tasha, these were all players at Gary Gygax's table at one point. Like all of the famous wizards, all of these huge famous names.
Just put his friends in the
Yeah. Yeah. So can you imagine being the guy who played Mordenkainen or the person who played Tasha, at the original table of Gary Gygax, and then seeing your name, the character that you created, have novels written about them. They have full supplements about them. I mean, it's such
better, imagine being the guy that's like Bink Bonk the gnome, and he was never
you
written
didn't
in.
get
He's like,
included?
what the fuck,
Yeah,
Gary?
you got screwed out of it.
Bink Bonk was good, dude. You know he was gold, man. Yeah, like so Dave, like you did, in our campaign, I brought back the players that were like the first players in the world build area, but like they weren't playing in the game, but they were watching. And so it was nice to see their characters doing something. And like Lauren even asked, like, oh, what's my character doing in this? And so she was one of the big people to kind of cart them in to fight the BBEG. And it was more of like a call to me. And I think that's something for people who are looking to world build their own worlds, and they're playing D&D and they're world building as they're playing. Take those stories, and those are legends now. Those are things that can continue going on in the world, and it's just something beautiful about this collaborative storytelling. And like, your players will appreciate it at some point or another. They'll be like, dude, that's wicked that you put my character in there. Even just for a moment, even if you just mention them, it just makes them still living on, because
Legacy, right?
Yeah, it's legacy, and there's still there's still an attachment to it. I mean, all of you guys probably have attachment to all of your characters, right? And it's something that I love doing, and I know, Dave, you do too. As a DM, it's just so cool to pull from that lexicon that we have from these stories and be like, hey, by the way, you see someone, you only describe what they look like. The player is freaking out at the table knowing who they are, and the people who don't know now are welcomed to V, or welcome to Ilara. So all that fun stuff.
Well, and it's the perfect case study of, you're, as a DM, world buildings never stop because worlds never stop.
Mm-hmm.
The simple fact that while you're playing the game, if you're recognizing that you're also just world building collectively with your players, them having impact on the world itself, and seeing those characters come back after their triumphs or their failures or whatever the case is, like that's such a magical thing of D&D. And it's something that will have your players returning to the table time and time and time again, because if their decision, that's what this game is. It's about decisions, right? The DM sets the stage, tells you what's happening in front of you, and the players have to make the decision. To have those decisions matter and have impact on the rest of the world for the rest of the world itself, that that's the magic of it to me right there. It's that takes us away from I'm writing a book and I'm actually creating a world with the people that I care about at the table.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I feel like, that's it for our listener submissions today. So I feel like I can throw it back to you, Dave.
Well, I think that's actually where we are going to wrap up the podcast portion for the evening. We're going to go and join our little after party hangout. If you're listening on Spotify, or if you're checking us out on YouTube, come hang out with us over at twitch.tv/carefulcantrip, because we do have a before show and an after show. And if you'd like to come talk to us, if you'd like to come share your stories in the after party, come on over and join us. We're here every Tuesday night at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Aside from that, of course, if you're enjoying the content that we're creating and you want to support us a little bit, head on over to our Patreon. We got lots of tiers. We got lots of cool things that happen over there, including at the highest tier, I'm personally going to be running a monthly game coming up that is going to have impact on campaign 3. And overall, you get a bunch of other stuff as well at the lower tiers. So come on, go ahead, go check it out. Patreon.com/carefulcantrip. Find us on all the socials under the same name, Careful Cantrip. And until next time, adventurers, whether you're out there defeating gods, fighting for the world itself, or just trying to struggle up against a godly ant, I beg you all, one word of caution. Be careful out there. You can trip. We'll see you in the next one, guys. Thanks for listening.
Oh,
Bye.
the Patreon shout out.
Again.
And speaking of our Patreon, shout out to our lovely Patreon members. Rayna, who you got on the list this week?
Oh my gosh. We totally did not forget to do this at the top of the episode. Definitely not editing this in right now as we speak. But thank you to our top tier Fabled Orchid Warlocks. We got TC Kazan, Orniter, Lewis, thank you. Cookie Mon Steve, Dinosaur, thank you. J-Rex Gaming, and Colin Worcester. Thank you so much for being at our highest tier. And I hope you enjoy the one shot that's coming up in, 2 weeks now? Oh my God. Yeah.
Jeez.
Very
Jeez.
soon. Very soon.
Jeez.
All right, well, let's jump back into it then.
Cool. Yeah, new episode. Start from
Don't laugh immediately after. I'm trying to give you a place to cut it in, and you guys are the worst at
I
editing. My
can't.
God.
I'm going to have to put it in at the end anyways.
All right, fine.
I'm trying
We're
to
going
sit as still as I could, you know?
All right, fine.